Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 5, Text 19. Kala Chakram Brahmiti Kshnam Sarvam Nishkarshayat Jagat Swatantram Abudasyeha Kim Asat Karma Bhir Bhaver. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Narad Muni had spoken of a physical object made of sharp blades and thunderbolts. The Haryashvas understood this allegory as follows. Eternal time moves very sharply as if made of razors and thunderbolts. Uninterrupted and fully independent, it drives the activities of the entire world. If one does not try to study the eternal element of time, what benefit can he derive from performing temporary material activities? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This verse explains the words Shaura Pavyam Swayam Brahmi, which especially refer to the orbit of eternal time. It is said that time and tide wait for no man. According to the moral instructions of the great politician Chanakya Pandit, Ayushaha Chana Ekopi Nalabhya Swarna Koti Bihi Nachain Nirarthakam Nitihi Kacha Hanis Tato Adhika. Even a moment of one's lifetime could not be returned in exchange for millions of dollars. Therefore, one should consider how much loss one suffers if he wastes even a moment of his life for nothing. Living like an animal, not understanding the goal of life, one foolishly thinks that there is no eternity and that his lifespan of 50, 60, or at the most 100 years is everything. This is the greatest foolishness. Time is eternal, and in the material world one passes through different phases of his eternal life. Time is compared herein to a sharp razor. A razor is meant to shave the hair from one's face, but if not carefully handled, the razor will cause disaster. One is advised not to create a disaster by misusing his lifetime. One should be extremely careful to utilize the span of his life for spiritual realization or Krishna consciousness. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. This is a very instructive verse. This verse is spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami is explaining the incident concerning Narad Muni instructing the Haryashvas. The Haryashvas were very, very, very intelligent. So Narad Muni just spoke a few lines, one verse, and they immediately understood the uselessness of all material activities and the importance of cultivation of spiritual knowledge. Now, to help us understand what is that instruction Narad Muni gave to Haryashvas, Shukadeva Goswami is explaining each of the words in that verse that Narad Muni spoke. And Shukadeva Goswami has expanded it for us. And what Shukadeva Goswami explains is further expanded by Srila Prabhupada. Shukadeva Goswami says, eternal time moves very sharply as if made of razors and thunderbolts. So Narad Muni had given an allegory to help understand what is the effect of eternal time in this material world. So time is actually having a destructive effect in this material world if one is not engaged in spiritual activities. If one simply spends time in material activities, then time has a destructive effect. That's why every verse that Shukadeva Goswami explains the different parts of that one single instruction Narad Muni gave to the Haryashvas. Every verse ends with Kim asat karmabhi bhavet. What is the use of engaging in temporary fruitive activities? So here, the explanation Srila Prabhupada gives in the purport for what Shukadeva Goswami is telling is that this verse explains the orbit of eternal time. Time does not wait for anybody. Time is passing, and if in the human form of life we do not utilize this time for spiritual activities, then the time we have will be wasted, and that every moment of time in this material world, in this human form of life, is very, very valuable, because a moment of time lost cannot be got back even if one is ready to spend millions of dollars. That's what Chanakya Pandit says. So therefore, if one wastes time for doing nothing, doing something which is ultimately useless, then it is a very, very, very big loss. So Prabhupada says one should not live like an animal, wasting time in material activities, but one should utilize the time available in this human form of life simply for cultivating spiritual knowledge, for spiritual practice. In that way, time can be best utilized. Now, time is described in the Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna asks a question to Krishna after Arjuna sees the universal form. Arjuna's question is that Akhyahi meko bhavan ugra rupo Namostute Deva Vara Prasida. This is the 31st verse from the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Vijñātum ichchāmi bhavantam ādyam nahi prajanami tava pravrittim. The meaning is, Arjuna is asking Krishna, I do not know what your mission is. Please tell me who you are. So, Krishna's direct reply, the immediate next verse, 32nd verse of the 11th chapter, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Kalosmi. In that universal form, Krishna tells, I am time. Kalosmi. And what is his mission? Loka Kshayakrit. As time, Prabhupada's translation, time I am destroyer of the worlds. Loka Kshayakrit. So, time is simply destructive. With the passing away of time, everything material is completely destroyed. So, you can understand, if everything is going to be destroyed, what is the use of anybody engaging in any activity to either create something material or to spend time with material things? It's ultimately going to be completely destroyed. So this also means, if everything material is going to be destroyed, this bodily conception in which a person thinks, I am this body is a material body, it is going to perish, it's going to be finished. So if all our life we simply engage in activities connected with the upkeep of this body, or just activities connected with some thing to do with this body, then all that is ultimately finished. When death comes, everything is over. All our material activities, our material pursuits, our material possessions, our material relationships. Krishna also says in the 10th chapter, Mrityu sarva haraschaham. I take away everything at the time of death. Everything here means everything material. So this is the truth about time. And time is described in many different places in the scriptures. Time is actually pushing everyone to move. Move towards what? Move towards death. Move towards destruction. So in the 11th canto, there is a description of the 12th canto, there is a description of 4 kinds of annihilation in this material existence. One of them is the annihilation due to the time element. Time is destroying, as far as our experience goes, if we are not spiritually alert or spiritually active, time destroys in such a way that little by little by little, every moment there is destruction taking place. But we don't realize this destructive effect of material time till we see some big change. Till we see some big change. And for somebody who is completely lost in material pursuits, then death is the point where they will realize something, some big destruction has taken place. When mrityu sarva haraschaham, everything is lost. So, this is the nature of time. If time is not utilized for spiritual activities. So as opposed to material time, there is something called eternal time. Now, time that operates in the material world, we can say is material time. But time in the spiritual world, there is no material time that is working or operating in the spiritual world. Does that mean spiritual world there is nothing like time? No. Brahma Samhita informs us there is something called spiritual time. What is that spiritual time? Brahma Samhita describes Goloka Vrindavana. In Goloka Vrindavana, the time that operates is described as Nimeshardhakyo va vrajati nahi yatrapi samayaha. Time is there. A different kind of time is operating in the spiritual world, in the Goloka Vrindavana. What is that? In that Goloka Vrindavana, there is existence, eternal existence of transcendental time. Material time is also eternally existing in the material world. But in the spiritual world, there is eternal existence of transcendental time. And what is this transcendental time? Who is ever present without past or future. who is ever present without past or future. So, in the material world, characteristic of time is it always is creating a sense of past, present and future. Just like you take this date today. Today is the 14th of April 2023. This 14th of April, our perception according to influence of material time, yesterday we were told it is future, a future day. Tomorrow, yesterday we were told tomorrow is 14th of April, future. Today, 14th of April, we say it is present. It's present. Tomorrow, 15th of April, what will it say? It is past. 14th of April is the same, but depending on our relative position in terms of time itself, always this conception of past, present and future always exists. Whereas in the spiritual world, you know that in spiritual world there is no aging. Everyone lives eternal life in an eternal spiritual form or body, if I may use that word, eternal body, spiritual body, and they are simply engaged in service to Krishna, loving devotional service to Krishna. And what is Krishna's business in the spiritual world? He is simply engaged in his pastimes. Eko devo nitya leelanu rakto. What is Krishna doing? Of course, the scriptures say Krishna has nothing to do. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. He has nothing to do. But that doesn't mean he's inactive. Nothing to do means his energies are carrying out everything that is under his control and in his purview. His energies are carrying out everything according to his will. But it is also described that he is engaged eternally in activities with his devotees simply meant for everyone's pleasure. Anandamayo bhyasat. He is full of ananda. And that ananda, he is not just enjoying alone. He always is enjoying that ananda, that transcendental bliss along with his devotees. So devotees are also simply immersed completely in ananda. And Krishna also is completely immersed in ananda. So in that spiritual existence, there is eternal time which is not passing away like in the material world. Like we have experienced, if we have some so-called material happiness, which is not real happiness, but even then, if we consider it to be some kind of happiness, it doesn't last. Material happiness does not last. According to Shastra, all material happiness lasts for a very, very small bit of time. It's called Chapala Sukha. Govindas Kaviraj, one of the Vaishnava poets, he writes, Chapala Sukha Labalagire, Shita Atapa Bata Varishana, Edina Jamini Jagire, Vipale Sevinu Kripana Durajana, Chapala Sukha Labalagire. Just for some very, very, very little amount of this material happiness, I've usually served so many wicked and cruel people while enduring different kinds of miseries due to scorching heat biting cold, torrential rains, and the wind. So there is some misery always, but between two miseries, when there is some relief, that is actually perceived by the foolish living entity who is after always seeking material happiness as some kind of happiness. So relief from misery is interpreted as happiness by the ignorant living beings in this material world. So happiness is very, very little, and that little happiness actually is totally different from Chapala Sukha, the eternal bliss which never passes away. If somebody is engaged in serving Krishna, then they are always happy in association with Krishna. They are blissful. And that blissful experience does not get exhausted. Why? Because the nature of eternal time is, it is not subject to the quality of passing away even for the space of half a moment. Nimesha ardha akhyaha va vrajati does not pass. Even half a moment does not pass. That means they are always in ever-present eternal time in the spiritual dimension. So they are always youthful. They are always engaged in pastimes, serving Krishna in his Leela. That's all that is happening. Only when Krishna comes to this material world, incarnates in the material world, there is something slightly peculiar about Krishna's pastimes in the material world. There are some things, some pastimes in the material. Srila Jiva Goswami explains this in one of his commentaries on the Brahma Samhita, which is quoted by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. That Srila Jiva Goswami says, Krishna's pastimes in the material world are characterized by certain peculiar activities which are never there in the spiritual world. For example, the birth pastime. Krishna is never born. Actually, he is never born. But something like birth happens in the material world. Krishna Janma. We celebrate Krishna Janmashtami. That is Krishna's appearance in this material world. Transcendental appearance. Transcendental appearance. So, is there such a pastime of Krishna in the spiritual world? No. There is no birth. Then Krishna killing demons. There are no demons in the spiritual world. So therefore, there is no question of killing demons. That happens only in the material world. Krishna is born, then apparently he is born as a very small infant, and then Vasudeva, out of fear of Kamsa killing this 8th child also, is very anxious to protect this child. So Krishna says, you take me and hide me in Nanda Gokula, Nanda Maharaj's house in Gokula. So Vasudeva, very much relieved to hear that, he immediately takes Krishna and hides him in Nanda Maharaj's house. So then apparently there Krishna is growing up. He grows up. Then after he's about, say, 12 or 13 years old, then he leaves Vrindavan and goes away to Mathura. So this growing up never happens in the spiritual world. There's no growth in the spiritual world. See, what we say as growth in the material world is actually the change that is happening of the material body. Material body is constantly changing. Everything material is constantly changing. This is described by Krishna in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Adibhutam ksharo bhavaha. Everything material is constantly changing. Why this change? Because time is acting on matter and constantly destroying whatever is so-called created out of matter. Everything material that is created is constantly being destroyed by time. Time is constantly destroying it. So Prabhupada says in one place, death is born as soon as you take birth itself. Death is there as soon as you're born. It is just that it is spread over little destruction over a lifespan of, let's say, 80 years or 60 years or 100 years, whatever. The final stroke of Kala is called death. The final stroke, when completely this body is finished. But as soon as somebody takes birth, little by little, the lifespan is reducing. But we don't realize that if we are materially engaged, materially absorbed. And suddenly it seems like death has come, whenever death comes. But actually it is happening all through, because this body is being destroyed. So there is nothing like growth in reality. Devotees understand there is nothing like growth. Just like this table, it's material. So does matter ever grow? No. There's an illusion of growth of this material body. Illusion of growth. Because material body, when we say, body cannot change. Body cannot develop. A body cannot grow. Does a table ever become big? Anything material other than this material body, does it ever become big? No. But this table is losing its strength. So if apparently nothing is happening, the table is as it is, no. Table is being destroyed by Kala. You just have to wait for the time when complete destruction happens. Just like a building. If it is just abandoned, or even otherwise, if people utilize the building also, it will stay for 100 years, 1,000 years, 5,000 years. One day it is going to completely crumble, however strong the building may be. The whole universe itself, there's something called universal time. Universal time, the whole universe is going to be destroyed completely. So Kala destroys everything. It's just a question of a perception according to our relative perception of something is lasting long or something is lasting very short time. But this is relative to our own lifespan. It's our own lifespan. So Brahma is also perceiving time in terms of his lifespan. So for him also, there is a day which according to our calculation lasts some billions of years, but he perceives his day as the way we perceive our day. So he lives his 100 years, we live our 100 years. But ultimately, even Brahma is afraid of death. Bhagavatam says, Brahma, he has got the longest lifespan in the entire creation. But even Brahma, he doesn't have to go through old age, disease, miseries like we go through. Brahma doesn't have to go through. But even he has no fear of old age or disease or any kind of miseries that we experience. But even Brahma is afraid of death. This is what Bhagavatam says. So you can imagine the influence of Kala. Kala brings about death. Kala brings about destruction. So Kala simply induces fear in every living entity, including Brahma. But that is because we are under the shelter of the material energy. If we take shelter of the spiritual energy, Mahatma anastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha. There are two kinds of energy under which we have to be sheltered. Of course, default is, whether we like it or not, we are under the shelter of the material energy. But if we engage in Krishna consciousness and come under the shelter of the spiritual energy, Yogamaya, instead of Mahamaya, we come under protection or shelter of Yogamaya, then we come under eternal time, which is transcendental time. So in transcendental time, there is no death, there is no old age, there is no disease, there is no misery, there is no material existence. Finished. Your material existence is finished. So we should take to spiritual activities, not waste time with material activities. What is that? Kim asat karma bhir bhavet. What is the use of engaging in material activities? It's total waste of time. So don't waste time. Prabhupada many times says, don't waste time in material pursuits. Simply engage as far as possible all the time in Krishna consciousness. I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.